The world didn't end with a bang. It didn't fall to fire or flood. It just went still. At first, the stillness was a relief. No more alerts screaming through my phone. No more panicked broadcasts or flashing banners or emergency tones. No more updates. Just silence. Deep, whole silence. It took longer than it should have to notice that there was no wind. The trees didn't sway. The birds had stopped flying. Clouds held their shape like painted ceilings, never drifting, never changing. The insects died first, then the machines. I'd been at a research outpost when it started, remote, high up, surrounded by pine forests and mountain stone. There were 7 of us, and then 5, and then 3. When I left, I didn't say goodbye to the last one. I don't remember if he was still breathing. I didn't check. I kept going because that's what the body does. It moves forward long after the mind has stalled. Food ran out, then firewood, then time. I began marking the days on a birch tree, and when I woke one morning to find 17 extra slashes carved into the trunk, neat, measured, nothing like my hand, I stopped counting. The woods were wrong. Not dead, just wrong. They were too intact. No rot, no fallen limbs, no seasonal change. Just an endless imitation of life. One morning I passed the same bloomed mushroom ring I'd seen 3 days before. Every cap identical, every stem untouched. I began seeing animals, but they weren't right either. A fox stood in a clearing, still as stone, watching me without blinking. Hours passed. It never moved. I came back the next day. It hadn't decomposed. It hadn't shifted at all. Eventually, I stopped sleeping. There was no dream anymore, no night or day. Just a constant gray that stained the air like dust you couldn't wipe off your skin. The color of stillness. I tried walking west, then south, then uphill, where radio towers used to blink. Every path brought me back to the same flat patch of moss, untouched, unchanging. I never saw my breath, even in the cold. I ate bark, then I stopped needing to eat at all. My stomach stopped making sound. My sweat smelled like nothing. I shaved, and it never grew back. I think something was preserving me, not out of mercy, just habit. Time didn't pass. It accumulated. I felt heavier each day, like moments were layering themselves on top of me, thick and slow and wet, too dense to shed. I forgot my name sometime between what felt like March and the season that should have followed, but I still knew what my voice sounded like. Or thought I did, until I tried humming and couldn't remember a single melody. Somewhere far below the dirt, the earth still vibrated. I could feel it when I lay down, like a heartbeat without a body. Slow, deep, patient. It didn't want attention. It wanted witnesses. Something in the soil was awake, not intelligent, not angry, just observant. It watched the way a fungus watches, quietly, curiously, with no urgency and no end. It didn't need me, but it noticed me. That was enough. I came across a second cabin weeks later, or maybe I'd circled back again. This one had collapsed inward, half swallowed by moss, the roof buckled like a mouth caught mid-chew. Inside, I found a jacket hanging on a hook. Same color as mine, same tear along the cuff. I put it on before I realized I'd already been wearing mine. There were no footprints, but the dust had settled in the shape of knees beside the empty bed. I never saw my reflection again. Not in puddles, not in glass, just blank space where I should have been. That felt like the final kindness, like the world was helping me fade without pain. Eventually, I stopped walking. There was nowhere left to go. The sky never changed. The ground no longer ached beneath my feet. I sat by the roots of a tree that hadn't grown in years, and I waited. Not for rescue, just for the quiet to become complete. They said there'd be sirens, that the end would come with a roar, a shockwave, maybe even fire. But all I remember is light. A flash too wide for the horizon, and then a silence so heavy it never left. The first few hours afterward were chaos, the kind that doesn't feel real while it's happening. I barely remember reaching the shelter, just the pressure in my skull and the skin around my mouth burning from the taste in the air. There were others with me at first. 15, maybe 20. The lights flickered overhead. No clocks, no windows. Just the low, groaning hum of air circulation and the sound of people trying not to be afraid. After a while, we stopped talking. I think it's been months now. Maybe longer. I tried keeping track on the wall, but the marks started moving, sliding slightly overnight. Never quite where I'd left them. The shelter was supposed to keep us alive. Instead, it just kept us present, breathing, but not living. When the food ran low, some people left. They thought the surface might be safe by then. I never saw them again, didn't expect to. Eventually, I was the only one left. The air feels thick now, almost alive. I think it remembers the others. Sometimes I hear their footsteps in the next hallway even though the doors never open. Sometimes I hear my name, even though I haven't spoken it aloud in over a year. One day, I went up. The hatch was stiff, but it gave. The air outside was dry and still. It smelled like metal and rot, like the earth had cracked open and forgotten how to heal. The sky was the wrong color. Too pale, too wide. Clouds moved too slowly, if they moved at all. The buildings were collapsed, skeletal. No bodies, just outlines. Shadows burned into the ground, like people had been peeled away. I walked for hours. Nothing moved. No birds, no insects. Just the soft crunch of glass underfoot and the distant sound of something collapsing far away. At one point, I passed a row of mannequins in a shattered storefront. They weren't facing the street. They were facing inward, as if something had drawn their attention right before the blast, or after it. I didn't look long. Back underground, things were different. Colder. The rooms didn't smell like dust anymore. They smelled like soil, like something had grown in the walls. Or crawled in from somewhere deeper. I started sleeping in the control room. It was the only place with lights that didn't flicker, but I couldn't keep the silence out. It settled in the walls, in the air, in the hollow between heartbeats. I think I'm changing. My skin doesn't itch anymore. My hair stopped growing. I haven't eaten in days, and I don't feel weak. I caught a glimpse of myself in the steel panel above the wash sink. The face, looking back, wasn't mine. The eyes were too dark. The mouth was too still. But the worst part wasn't that I looked different. The worst part was the expression. Like I had just heard something very important, and it hadn't reached the surface of my mind yet. I don't know what the bombs did to the world, but they did something else too. They opened it. Beneath the cities, beneath the bones, beneath the silence, something woke up. Or maybe it was always there, and we were just too loud to notice. Now, all that's left is listening. I think I'll go deeper. The old tunnels below the shelter used to be blocked. Now the doors are open. There's warmth leaking up through the cracks. There's a pulse you can feel through the soles of your shoes, like something huge is sleeping just below the concrete. I'm not afraid anymore, maybe because fear has nothing left to cling to. When all that remains is dust that remembers, and silence that watches, there's only the slow pull of whatever's waiting beneath it all. And I don't know if I'll walk into it, or if it's already inside me. I didn't see it happen. The sky didn't crack open. Cities didn't burn. There were no sirens, no broadcasts, no bombs. Just silence. I was underground when it started, replacing a pump valve in the aqueduct tunnels beneath Sector 3. They sent me down there alone like always. My radio stopped working an hour, in which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that I couldn't get it back when I came up. None of them worked. Not my handheld, not the police band, not the towers blinking red on the hills. The air felt wrong, like it had been cleaned too thoroughly. No people, no bodies, no birds, no dogs barking in the distance, not even the buzz of streetlights, just a stillness so dense it pressed behind my eyes. It didn't feel like everyone had died. It felt like something had collected them. The first few nights I stayed in a bakery near the rail station. Plenty of food, no windows. On the second night, the radio turned itself on. It wasn't mine. I found it on a counter in the kitchen. Its battery port rusted through. The speaker let out a soft click, then a long, steady hum, like a tone meant for something that wasn't me. It made my teeth ache. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye, shadows that moved opposite to light, people-shaped blanks. When I tried to approach them, I felt pressure, like my thoughts were being inspected one by one. I ran from them, but I still don't know if that made a difference. By the 7th day, I began finding things left for me. Not notes, arrangements. Once, a circle of human teeth laid out neatly around a still warm coffee cup. Another time, my own clothes, freshly washed and folded on a park bench. Once, a page torn from a textbook with a sentence underlined in blood. When the signal cleared, it heard us. I think humanity called out. Not on purpose, not even together, but all our noise, all our data, all the transmissions we sent into the void. Something heard us, and it answered. Not immediately, not loudly, just enough to slide in between frequencies, between dreams, between the folds of our assumptions. And then, one day, everything was quiet, because something else was listening now. Day 27, I made it to the observatory at Cradle Hill. Every telescope had been shattered from the inside, like something had come through them. In the control room, I found a hand-scrawled note taped to a dead man's chest. They're not here to invade. They're here to wear us. He'd bitten off his fingers to stop himself from writing more. Lately, the radios have spoken more often. Not in words I understand, but in arrangements of tones that make me feel like I'm remembering something wrong. Like I was never human in the first place, just shaped like one for convenience. Late at night, I hear my name spoken softly from outside the places I sleep. Not whispered, replicated. Like someone studying a recording of me and trying to get it right. They get closer every time. Yesterday, I found a second version of this journal. Same handwriting, same ink, same entries, but it ends tomorrow. I don't know if I'm the last, or if I'm just the last one still thinking I am. Either way, I think tonight's the night they stop pretending I'm not home.